you could share your name, your pronouns, the organization and city you're calling from, and just on a scale of 1 to 10, how you're feeling today. And then while everyone's throwing things in the chat, I'll go ahead and introduce myself a little more in my role. Actually, I'm going to hand it over to Cheyenne first to kick us off with introductions.
Yeah, thank you. So my name is Cheyenne Shelby-Petersen. I am the Senior Manager of Volunteer Engagement here at Chicago Cares. I am so excited to be here. Okay, I don't know where I left off, but looks like things are quitting on me. So I've been with the organization for about 3 years. I started as a fellow, worked my way into our capacity building team full-time, and then joined the volunteer engagement team as a senior manager. I'm also a member of our equity task force. I've been a member for about a year now on the equity task force, so we'll hear a little bit more about my involvement there as well. So I will pass it off to Kelly to go ahead and share about herself.
Thanks, Cheyenne. I'm just looking at the chat. It looks like we have folks from all over the country and the world, which is pretty awesome. And everyone looks like they're feeling pretty good today, so I like to see that. So my name's Kelly Pattermann, pronouns she, her. I'm the Director of People and Operations at Chicago Cares. I've been here for 7 years. I started off on the program side for the first 5 years and really got to see the organization grow and evolve, especially around equity and our way we interact with our communities in the city of Chicago. And the last 2 years, I've transitioned over to the administration team and have really helped to guide the team and do all that equity work that we were doing on the program side and focus that internally on our policies and how we treat our staff and how we want to be a best-in-class workplace. So that's just a little bit about myself. Feel free to keep throwing things in the chat. We want to kind of capture where everybody's coming from and how they're feeling. And then, Cheyenne, if you want to go to the next page, I'm going to go over the agenda for today. So for today, Cheyenne and I will talk a little about Chicago Cares and the work we do. And then I will share our journey towards creating a more equitable and healthier workplace. We'll all do a little workshop activity together. And then Cheyenne and I will share how we turn transformation into actual policy and culture and just the way that we work at Chicago Cares. There'll be questions and discussion along the way. Again, we want this to be interactive. And then we'll open it up for all just general questions at the very end. We'll utilize the chat feature a lot, and we'll also encourage folks to unmute and share as you feel comfortable. So feel free to either raise your virtual hand or just let us know in the chat that you would like to unmute and share out. So before we just jump into it, are there any general questions or housekeeping things that we need to cover? All right, I will hand it over to Cheyenne then to share a little bit about Chicago Cares and who we are.
Great, thanks so much, Kelly. So yeah, let me give you a little bit of a background on Chicago Cares and who we are. At Chicago Cares, we are redefining volunteerism to really bring people power to the work of change. So we create service experiences that shake us up so that we can go out in the world and change it. Volunteer projects and educational forums are co-designed with our organizations on Chicago's south and west sides to make sure we're really achieving community goals and serving with, not serving to. You can go to the next slide. So why do we do this now? What's so important? Through community-driven service, we have built connections and bridges among diverse people in the face of great division and disconnection. So our work to change hearts and minds isn't a luxury right now. It's a necessity for a just society. So we can't legislate our way into caring about one another. We have to do it person to person. So something that I want to point out on this slide here is we are really excited to say that 100% of our Chicago Cares volunteers report that their experience has helped them see things through someone else's perspective. That's an exciting number. 100% of anything is exciting. So I'll go into the next section of our approach. So we are a concrete, unwavering partner to Chicago's most impactful community leaders who know best what their own organizations and communities need. So volunteers see firsthand community assets and challenges while learning about the aspirations neighborhoods hold for themselves. So since 2017, we have connected over 16,000 volunteers and leveraged over $3.7 million to drive the core of our community partners on the South and West Side. So if you want to learn more about us, you can visit our website at chicagocares.org. We're on all the social medias, and you can also reach out to us directly, which we'll share our contact information at the end of the session so we can kind of connect that way as well. So next I want us to go into agreements. So at Chicago Cares, one way that we like to ensure deep impact is to ensure strong and equitable communication. So what this means is we're making the assumed explicit. We like to have powerful conversations that lead to impact. And if we have assumptions, it can hold us back from having those powerful conversations. So what we do is we create agreements. These are just shared terms on how we are going to operate together in this space. As I read through these, if there's anything that you're like, pause, I don't know what that means, or maybe you want to see something changed, you want to add something, take a mental note, and then we'll gather all that information at the end so that we can have agreements that we all feel comfortable with. So the first one here is ouch, oops, acknowledge harm and take responsibility for impact. Practice generosity, so calling each other in and not out. Listen actively and attentively, listening to learn, so take care not to talk over or interrupt. Be curious, ask genuine questions for clarification. Speak from your own experience. Avoid put downs, even those thought to be humorous. Build on others' comments and works towards a shared understanding. We like to use and statements and avoid but statements. Take space, make space. Balance your participation in the discussion so everyone's voice is heard. And then engage in generative conflict and disagreement. If you disagree with something, we want to hear it. And then overcome groupthink. So these are our standard agreements. If there's anything that you would like to add or you have questions about, go ahead and post it in the chat, and then we can kind of work through those and figure out if we agree. Yeah, these agreements have been generated over many, many meetings. We use them every time we meet internally and externally. So we take all sorts of suggestions, we change things, they're always moving. So even this list is different than a list I used last week because we have conversations about them so often. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions here, but if you all agree, we would love for you to signal that you agree to these agreements by either putting it in the chat, or you can do a hand up, you can do a thumbs up, some kind of reaction, some way that you signal that you agree to these agreements in this space today. And I'll just give you a verbal agree. Awesome. I see a couple coming in the chat. All right, great. Thumbs up, getting some reactions here. This is perfect. And I'll tell you, I do wait for a majority, so. All right, awesome. Thank you all so much. So thanks for agreeing. I am going to pass it over to Kelly to get us started on the content.
Great, thank you, Cheyenne. So To get us started, in the last 2 years, we have all, witnessed, been affected by, or even participated in what the media has dubbed the Great Resignation. Sounds very dramatic, but we've all heard about it in some form or another. And according to MarketWatch, this peaked in November of 2021 as 4.5 million Americans quit their job. Whereas before the pandemic began, the average number was around 3 million a month. Majority of those surveyed stated reasons unrelated to the pandemic for leaving their jobs. So this leads us to believe that the American workforce has actually begun rejecting this established belief that people are just what they produce, and have instead gone on to search for increased ownership, health, balance, or meaning in their lives. So to get us going in the chat here, I'd love to hear from all of you on some reasons you may have heard of why people have resigned, or maybe you resigned yourself in the last 2 years. What are some reasons that we can kind of all get on board with here of why people have resigned? And again, feel free if you want to unmute to just throw in the chat. I can't see everybody's faces, so if you just want to, burnout, better benefits and pay, toxic work cultures, oppression or bias in the workplace, no growth opportunity, undervalued, underpaid, burnout, work-life balance, daycare, school, toxic environments, a lot of themes here, burnout, Awesome. So I think lack of safety, COVID safety protocols. So I would say majority of what you guys are saying and recognizing, while it might have enhanced during the pandemic, these aren't just result of the pandemic happening. And I think what we need to talk about is we in the social sector are just as guilty as any when it comes to not reckoning with how our drive to demonstrate change can actually harm and deplete those who are critical to the success of our missions, which are our employees. And over 10% of the American workforce is in the nonprofit sector. So, we are serious contributors to the economy and the workforce, and we can't be immune to these types of conversations. So next slide. So how can we as social impact leaders take this crisis and turn it into an opportunity to reshape our workplaces to be healthier and more equitable? If we can answer and act on that question, then it's only going to benefit and create greater social change to meet our missions. So today, Cheyenne and I will share Chicago Care's ongoing journey to answer that question, and how we took an employee-led approach to ensure our policies and culture were equitable and values aligned. The hope is that we can all learn from each other through this session and walk away with a new idea to bring back to our teams. Cheyenne and I will also be taking notes because we want to bring back new ideas. Every organization can do something to advance equity. We're only limited by our own creativity. So just some quick examples to get our juices flowing here. You could offer financial hardship loans to your employees. You could make your health benefits more family friendly, to something as easy as acknowledging and honoring all staff birthdays and work anniversaries. This is just some examples to see that there are many ways to advance equity. It's not just one set, more pay or better hours or anything like that. So before we jump in to talking about our journey, I want to pause again and hear from all you in the chat. What are some policies, benefits, and or culture activities that already center your employees' well-being at your organizations? Whether it's been a recent change or not, what can we already celebrate that our organizations are doing for our employees? Work from home, flexible schedules, mental health days, office gives 2 additional culture days for any personal celebrations we may observe. Awesome. Office closures that are paid. yoga wellness time, hybrid workplace, combined sick and personal leave, social moment celebrations. See a lot of wellness days or wellness practices. It's great. Yeah, just it's just as easy as acknowledging each other for a job well done can go a long way. Improving health coverage, Friday afternoons off in the summer. Awesome. So feel free to keep throwing those in chat. Again, we want to share ideas with across the board that we can bring back to our own organizations. And I'd love to see that there are so many organizations already making moves to center their employees. Is there anyone that wants to unmute before we move on that wants to talk further about their example in their healthier workplace?
My workplace does a pretty good job of work-life balance in that I have 3 young kids that I need to switch from preschool to daycare right in the middle of the workday. It's kind of well known and on everyone's schedules that between 11 and noon, Molly has to go take care of her kids for the hour. And it doesn't mean I get the hour unpaid or need to make it up. It's more just we kind of work around it. So it doesn't feel like I'm being punished for having to take care of my kids.
That's great. Yeah, thank you for sharing, Molly. Yeah, I think that's a great example because not only do you have the flexibility now to work from home, but your organization has gone one step further and it's allowed you to still, balance your personal life and have those breaks through that day to help, transfer your kids from one school to the other or whatever your situation may be. So there's actually a twofold benefit there of working from home and the flexibility there. Anyone else?
I've had the experience. So hi everyone, my name is Rashida. In a previous role, I've had the experience where if I was sick or if I was like, a little under the weather, just in the morning or something, I had to take the entire day off. It was like, okay, you need to go off. And that was just it. And I wasn't paid for that day. Or, I come back the next day and I have a plethora of work. And now that I'm a mommy, I'm actually home with my daughter and she's sick today. And it wasn't, oh, okay, well, we'll see you tomorrow, or make sure you're on from 5 to 8 to make up those hours, So having that flexibility now as a parent and for my own well-being as a parent, as a human, it makes a big difference. It feels better to know that I have a team that's supportive and also flexible with my time and energy as a mom and as a person.
Great, thank you, Rashida. Yeah, I think just to reiterate your points there, I think the one thing the pandemic has done is shed light on working parents and how complicated and stressful that can be, and having organizations that support that. It goes a long way for your employees' mental health and their retention. So I think that that's a great example. Great, thank you so much, both of you. And I think these are all great examples, and I'd love to see the chat blowing up with all the things that organizations are already doing. But as always, there's room to grow, and this is a process and a journey. And policies and cultures, must evolve as the organization and its employees evolve. So next, we want to talk through just our story at Chicago Cares and the work we took and are continuing to take to center our employees, and our focus on culture and policy changes. So I'm gonna, okay. So Chicago Care's journey actually start towards a more equitable and healthier workplace actually started back in 2017. We began asking ourselves, how do we use our power and what do we value versus what do our actions portray? So after a lot of hard conversations and assessing everything against our power analysis question, which we created as who does this benefit and who does this harm, we realized our values did not align with our actions. So we did the work to refocus our organizational mission and we're making significant changes externally. So we were focusing solely on following our community's lead when it came to the services we were providing. We were beginning to push our donors in new ways, and we were beginning to diversify our board. And these changes put Chicago Cares on a whole new trajectory towards building a more equitable Chicago. And there was excitement and energy around building new programs and truly aligning to what our communities needed in the moment. But even with all that excitement and newness, we were still losing staff members. We were so focused on the production externally that we were burning our employees out. And so I want to pause again. As I said, this is going to be interactive and I don't want to do all the talking. And we're going to launch a poll question just to see if this sounds familiar to anyone else. Has anyone experienced, whether it's your current organization or previous, have you ever experienced periods of major staff turnover? Cheyenne, are you running the polls or did someone take that over? Okay, I was like, whenever you're ready to close it. Okay, awesome. So as we can see, I think majority of us have experienced this, which, you know, was not shocking. We were kind of hoping that's what everyone would say. We've all experienced this, and we know that this is not sustainable for those left behind at the organization. And so after we had experienced this turnover, beginning in 2019, after our staff went through our second all-staff anti-racism training, employees began asking, why are we not assessing how power is used internally? So employees were tired of coworkers leaving and wanted to see change, and changes made internally, but we identified that the changes needed to be staff-led. It can't come from the top down. It needed to be guided by the staff. So that's when a diverse equity task force was formed. And the goal of the task force, or the ETF as we call it internally, was to embed our equity analysis within all of our work and for it not to be a siloed committee. So it's just supposed to be, this is the way that we work. So through staff-led reflections and feedback, the ETF began prioritizing current policies against our guiding question of who does this benefit and who does this harm. We then also assessed our policies against our organizational values. And what we discovered is where we were still very much pushing these white institutional values. So some examples of that is, you know, expecting staff to leave their personal lives at the door, valuing those 50-hour work weeks, demanding perfection of ourselves, and really living into this American motto that time is money, and the more you produce, the stronger you are. So these are just a few examples of some white institutional values. What are some other examples that you all see happening at your organizations or previous organizations? Reliance on the written word. It's a good one. Yep, if you're not in the building, you must not be working. Perfectionism.
I'll go ahead and share. At a previous organization, I was asked by a manager to actually like keep a minute by minute record essentially of what I was doing during the day. And I had forgotten about this completely. I was talking to a friend last night actually, and she's like, you should probably unpack that. I was like, you know, it's 5 years ago. I don't think I need to unpack it, but yeah, that's
I mean, that's the thing that I think hopefully more people have gone away from that, but that's still a very relevant for folks to have to track their time and really hold every minute to what they're doing. Allie said, being told I don't know anything based on my age. That's huge. Expectation of linear project progression. Yeah, so there are a lot out there, and I'm sure the more you think about it, the more you'll realize like things that are going on at your organization, or again, previous, or your friends or where family members to maybe talk about things. So similar to how you just recognize these values at your organizations or wherever it may be, we did that work at Chicago Cares, and we were very intentional about how we did that work. So what we realized is that these internal methods did not align to our values that we were working so hard to enforce and showcase externally. This was a hard truth. It's not easy to realize how their values are not aligning, but one that we really needed to discover. Because, as I mentioned before, employees are critical to our mission, why are we not investing in providing those same equitable benefits and environment and culture that we want all of our communities to receive? Your HR policies should align with your values. We are going to launch another poll just to see where everyone else thinks their organization stands. So without giving you much time to think about it, do you believe your policies as they currently stand align with your overall organizational values? I know this is a tough question just to think, but just in a general stance, do you think your organizational values align with your policies?
I'll give folks about 10 more seconds and I'll close it.
Okay. So a little closer to even than the first one, but I like to actually, I mean, this is great that most people feel that your policies are aligned to your values. That's huge. That means maybe you don't have as much work as we did at Chicago Cares to do, but I think it just shows. It also goes to state that there's always work to be done, and this was just a quick like overall assessment. And we can, I guess, let me pause again and ask if anyone wants to unmute and share about your answer further. I know this was a simple yes or no. Is there anyone that wants to elaborate and talk through maybe where your policies align or don't align now that you've thought about it? All right, that's all right. No one has to unmute. We can, I think in a more private session or one-on-one session, we could definitely talk about, get into each policy and how things align or don't align. We could talk about that all day. But unless you actually have proper tools to assess your policies, this might be where you get stuck. So next I'm gonna pass it back over to Cheyenne, because we're gonna go through a little activity together on shopping a policy change and how this is the work we did at Chicago Cares to transform our work.
Great, thanks. Yeah, and what's really exciting is it looks like some of you folks mentioned what we're about to workshop. So you'll have all of the information on how to get this done and put into place. But before we move into Chicago Cares and how we transform this work into policy, like I said, we want to workshop a policy change together. So maybe you don't have the backing or resources right now to have all your staff go through an anti-racism training or form an equity task force. And maybe you do, but either way, that's okay. We want to kind of give you some steps that you can take back to your team to start influencing change in your culture and policies. So we're going to utilize the chat feature again, but instead of just typing your answer and then hitting enter, we want you to hold off on hitting enter. So you'll type your answer in, and then when I say go, everyone will hit enter at the same time so we can get all of the answers at once. And that way people can kind of see if there are similarities at the same time. We also won't feel like maybe somebody stole our answer, so we don't want to post anything, but we all can kind of just say what we feel and see what matches up. For this activity, we're going to use the example of asking employees to provide their pronouns. So this was one of the first cultural policy changes our equity task force prioritized. And while it might seem like a simple ask, it will not become a part of your culture or policies until the work is done to know the reason behind the change. So the first question here on the screen, like I said, don't hit enter. Type it in the chat though, get ready. The first question is, where is the harm being done to employees by not asking for pronouns? So I'm gonna give you like 30 seconds to type something out. I know that I could write a novel on this, so just try to keep it short. But give us your response of where the harm is being done to employees by not asking pronouns. Don't hit enter yet. Okay. Like 10 more seconds. All right. We're gonna get ready to hit enter. I'm gonna do like a countdown. We're gonna do 3, 2, 1, and everyone's just gonna hit enter. So 3, 2, 1, hit that enter button. Let's see what we've got. Oh my goodness, this is crazy. Okay. On my end, this is wild. I'm glad that everybody is putting things in, so that's great. Some things that I see here, calling someone by the wrong pronoun, making assumptions can cause the employee harm. We're not being an open place for communication and acceptance, lack of empathy and understanding for who the person identifies as. I'll scroll down so we get some of the ones on the bottom as well. Employees who may be struggling with coming to terms with their own gender identity, but feeling as though their workplace is not a safe place to explore that, which is tricky given, yeah, you work 40 hours. That is like the primary place you are. Yeah. All right, great. Does anyone want to unmute and share a little bit more about this, or are we feeling like we want to just keep the ball rolling? If you have something to say, I'd love to hear it though.
My workplace, my pronouns are they, them. And my workplace has included like asking pronouns kind of as part of their diversity and equity initiatives. But then when we go into all of our ethics and compliance training, almost none of the videos have anybody with pronouns other than she, her, or he, him. So it's one of those like discrepancies kind of where you don't see them exhibiting the mission that they're kind of trying to uphold.
Right, like representation also matters, not just doing the thing and saying, great, whoever this applies to.
Yeah, like it kind of feels like, you know, just slapping it on their brand a little bit to like get the brownie points versus making the concerted effort to really like demonstrate like the inclusion.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. especially because we're in 2022 and people are like, oh, I think this is the right thing to do. And then not really understanding the like meaning behind it. Thanks for sharing. Okay. I am gonna go into the second question. We're gonna do the same thing. You're going to type your answer. You're not gonna hit enter yet. The question here is, what are the risks of changing this policy? Like, what are the risks that come to mind when you think about changing the policy? And that means like changing it to that we now ask for pronouns to be shared. So go ahead, get typing. I'll give you about 30 seconds and then we'll hit enter. Okay, on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, hit enter. Great. Okay. Ooh, so many. All right. Some of the risks, the nonprofit I work at is more conservative and Christian, so this topic is highly controversial. Interesting. So different views and beliefs can be a risk. Discomfort in revealing your pronouns or fear of discrimination. Other employees leaving. Some might not feel comfortable sharing their pronouns with people they don't know or trust well. It doesn't align with older board members' values. Employees leaving, that's another one. Great, okay, lots of thoughts here. Like before, I'll give space for if one person wants to share. If not, we can go on into the next one. Okay, let's do it. Third question. What are the risks of not changing this policy? Give you 30 seconds to type it out and then we'll hit enter. Okay. On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, hit enter. Unhappy staff, employees might leave. We remain stuck in our ways of not moving forward or being accepting. Organization stuck. That's another one. Missing out on really awesome employees and coworkers, making people feeling like they have to hide who they are. Yeah, absolutely. Low progression, no new talent. Continuing erasure. Great. Not great, but your responses are great. Okay. Does anyone want to share more on this one? We've got one more question left. Oh wait, no, we have 2 left.
You can combine those if you want.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay. So we're gonna do these 2 together. We want to know, how would you implement this change into your culture and policy? So not just changing the words on the page, but changing the culture as well. What are some things that you could do to implement this? I'm going to give you like 45 seconds since it's 2 questions, and we will let y'all hit enter in a few seconds. Okay, you might still be typing. That's okay. A half thought is still a thought. So on the count of 3, if you can hit enter. 1, 2, 3. Love it. Pronouns included in workplace signature. Kristen doesn't know, and that's okay. Ensure buy-in from key staff that already control direction of organizational culture, so that it's a genuine measure taken rather than performative. Start a DEI committee that makes data-driven recommended changes to the C-suite and have open conversations about change. I love these. As a volunteer coordinator, I can add this into trainings and orientations. In introducing this into the training, I can educate the staff too. I love that. Put it into handbooks, but also leading by example in meetings. Great. All right. We're doing really good work here. I want to kind of wrap us up so we can like give you the tools now. So we talked about it. We want you to have some tools. So we chose this specific policy because it welcomes the opportunity to build equitable, welcome workspace. So by sharing pronouns, you create space for folks to bring their whole person to the work and feel a sense of belonging, and so many other benefits, right? Like we talked about them, we shared them, we saw them in the chat. So it can be really easy to identify where and how transformation is needed, but actually creating new policy or shifting your culture, it takes time, commitment, and buy-in by all the parties who are involved. So now Kelly's going to share how Chicago Cares took the identified need to transform the betterment of employees and then turned it into policies and the everyday way that we work.
Great, thank you, Cheyenne. So we left off in our Chicago Cares journey in realizing that our HR policies did not align to our values. So over the last 3 years, the Equity Task Force has helped to prioritize the policies and culture pieces that needed assessing based on employee feedback. Because everything we do has a community-driven approach and centers people, which is essential when it comes to this work becoming reality. So if we do not let the employees be the drivers behind this work, then it does not matter what new policies are written, you will not have the buy-in and the commitment that is needed for it to become part of your culture. Culture and policy need to be changed hand in hand. So once staff are committed, then you work to get the approval from your leadership, your board, whatever, third parties that may need to be involved to make something a policy. But first you start with the staff. So since the start of 2019 until now, Chicago Cares has utilized our equity analysis and power analysis questions against every single one of our policies through prioritization. And we have been able to successfully change policy and shift our culture around a variety of items. And we want to kind of go through the 4 bucketed priority areas that we created. And we're going to do this somewhat quickly because we're running out of time. But for the first one, if you want to go to the next slide, Cheyenne is going to talk through the first bucket area.
Yeah, so the first one, valuing time for wellness, recognizing people need time to unplug and not feel hesitant around requesting time. So that includes wellness days. Outside of our generous PTO allowance this year, we added an additional 5 wellness days to the mental health or physical health purposes. We also have 2 wellness weeks where our entire organization is closed to allow staff time to rest and recharge.
The second bucket area that we prioritized was valuing employees as whole people. So recognizing that each employee has different lived experiences and different personal situations that they're bringing to their work every day. So examples of this are, the gender pronouns and setting meeting agreements like we did in this workshop, and creating that more inclusive, welcoming, safe environment. We have changed our family and parental leave policy from offering 10 weeks paid time off to 12 to 16 weeks paid time off based on tenure. We adjusted our bereavement leave language to allow employees to identify who is a family member to them versus only allowing leave for family with traditional family titles. Very simple, just one line of our handbook change, but it really opened up and the staff really appreciated the openness and inclusivity of that. Flexible work schedules. We heard a lot of folks have this. We allow employees to set their own schedules, obviously with supervisor approval and agreement. Health benefits. We now offer both PPO and HMO plan. Again, very simple. A lot of people already do this, but it just allows employees more choice. Hardship loan. So for employees facing financial hardship, we offer the ability to request a no interest loan to be repaid over agreed upon period of time. And then virtual work. A lot of us are still working virtually, but beginning of last year, we asked our staff what they would prefer, whether working in an office or staying remote. And overwhelmingly, folks preferred, the flexibility of working from home, but they still wanted the chance to interact in person with their colleagues. So now we've prioritized at least once a month gathering for whether it's a training, a workshop, just a simple lunch, like the ability to interact with your coworkers face to face. Majority of time are still virtual. And then Cheyenne, if you want to.
Yeah. So next, valuing employees' growth and development. So embracing the fact that employees will eventually move on from the organization and supporting that growth. So sabbatical leave. We developed a paid sabbatical leave for those who have served 3+ years. It's dedicated time to focus on personal and professional growth. We also developed a professional development strategy that allows for employees to build on an individual plan for their professional development goals for the year, including how they will hold themselves accountable and how they'll teach back what they've learned.
And then the last one is valuing employee labor. So recognizing that the work we do is important and valuable to our communities, and our staff should be compensated fairly. So we do a compensation study every 3 years, which again is fairly typical for organizations, but we wanted to be ahead of the curve. So not only did we compare salaries to the nonprofit sector, we also compared them to for-profit positions as well. We do a data-driven equity analysis. So we conduct every year, we look at salaries, merit increases, and titles to ensure there are no disproportionate impacts to various groups of employees based on race, gender, age, etc. And then this past year, we were fortunate enough to be able to give folks an adjustment based on their tenure to acknowledge their commitment and longevity to Chicago Cares. So while none of these changes are wild or unheard of, they've all shown promise to build a healthier and more equitable workplace. So the next slide, I won't read through them, but if you guys want to read, they're just some quotes from our employees based on the feedback after we've made changes, just around their appreciation for the work we've done. We've onboarded new employees that are shocked by this level of intentionality because you don't get that everywhere. And then just some quotes around our Wellness Week and the appreciation and the ability to spend time with their family or children has been greatly received. So like we said in the beginning, every organization can make some change to advance equity and build a healthier workplace. We're only limited by our own creativity. We still have specific questions on our horizon at Chicago Cares to address around performance management, corrective action, length of our work week, and additional family benefits. So again, we call this a journey because the work will never be done. Society changes and forces employees' needs to shift, and in turn, your organization should evolve and shift with your employees. So that's Chicago Cares' journey in a real quick wrap up towards transforming our policies and cultures to be more equitable and healthier for our employees. Do we have time real quick for any questions, or we have we just had one last accountability question that we always like to end our meetings on as well. I don't know, Elaine, if there's a time, we have a couple more minutes.
We got 5 minutes.
Oh, okay. I was thinking we're at 2. Okay, so then Cheyenne, if you want to do our accountability question.
Yeah, and I'll try to leave some time for you all to have, if you have questions for us as well. But something we always love to do is make sure you're going away doing something. So we want to be able to offer space for accountability. So what we want to ask here is, what is one commitment you are making going forward in this session? So maybe it's something as simple as writing down what you want to do next, or sharing this conversation with somebody within your organization. But what I want you to do right now is actually write it down. It could be in the chat, it could be on a piece of paper, it could be in your notes on your phone, on your hand. Write down what you're going to do so that you have some sort of accountability. I'll give you a second and I will read them as they come in as well. All right, we have in the chat, review bereavement policy. Awesome. What are some other things? An action can also be just thinking about it. That counts. Raise pronoun questions with managing partners. Take a look at white institutional values and how to be less like that and more centered on wellness. Amazing. All right, so while folks are kind of sending these in, if anyone has any final questions, I think we can do like a couple, but then we want to give you our contact information so that you all have a place to send questions if you have them. So feel free to send in some questions if you have any, but you can find us on social media, like we mentioned, and then both of our emails are here on the screen. And then also we can put them in the chat as well. But feel free to reach out with any direct questions also.
Great. Thank you, everyone. If there's no questions or if no one wants to unmute, I'll pass it back over to Upswell to give us next directions. Oh, Douglas says, are there any tips for white institutional values exploration? My org is German and race issues rarely come into play. Definitely not from an NA perspective. Good question. We can actually share out some resources on how we, so if you, Douglas, if you want to email me, we can share out some resources on how we assessed our values and what white institutional values we discovered. But I think if anyone else, I guess let me open that up to everybody else if there's other folks that can help answer that question as well.
I don't know, it might have floated to the top. I was asking, are there other organizations that you partner with across other states or communities that have the same mission as Chicago Cares?
The same like direct mission as far as like engaging volunteers and yeah, so we are actually a part of an affiliate called Points of Light, and so there are similar affiliates across the country in different cities that do similar work to us. We all have different missions, but the overall goal is to engage volunteers. Cool. So it sounds like we want some more resources, and here's some links that people are sharing around white supremacy and workplace. So yeah, I would love for anyone that wants to reach out to Cheyenne and I for more resources. We're happy to share what we've been using at Chicago Cares. Cool. Thank you all.